meeting of January 7th, 2025. It's a hybrid organizational meeting. I'm Vice Chair Takis Karantonis with board members Matt Ferranti, Maureen Coffey, Susan Cunningham, and for the first time participating our newest board member, Mr. J.D. Spain, Sr. Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon and for your understanding regarding the adjusted date and format. We rescheduled yesterday's meeting to ensure that county resources were focused on responding to the ongoing inclement weather event, the snow that you see outside. And we're appreciative of the hardworking staff who have been working around the clock to ensure that the roads are clear and safe and that we are almost back to normality. Mr. Manager, thank you for conducting this effort across the entire county. With that, to this afternoon's business, I want to invite you to join me to the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will next to take a moment to read through the land acknowledgement as outlined in the county's historic resources master plan. This was approved at the very end of last year, 2023, and we didn't get to be able to do that in last year's first meeting. I'm very happy that we can do that at least once a year in this meeting. Ms. Cunningham.
We acknowledge that the land comprising present-day Arlington County is the ancestral home and hunting ground of the Dogue, Tauxonant, and Piscataway people, many with the Algonquin language group and some within the Powhatan Paramount chiefdom. We recognize that the Piscataway were driven from this land, but continue to thrive and take pride in their community, despite the many injustices laid at their feet. We acknowledge that we do not know more about the historic Dogue and Tauxonant people, their lives and their descendants, because they were killed, persecuted off this land, or forced to assimilate by European settlers who had no regard for their lives and culture. We recognize the Indigenous people who have come to live in Arlington, whether as new residents or as descendants of those who were forced to leave. We celebrate this land and pledge to improve our stewardship of this precious, irreplaceable bounty. To begin to repair the harms of Arlington's ancestors, we strive to break down the systems which have discriminated against Indigenous nations and all the people whose land and labor were stolen in the making of our community. We acknowledge that the prosperity of what we now know as Arlington was built in large measure on the stolen labor of people enslaved and indentured on this land, including those of Indigenous and African descent, who were forced to work without adequate compensation, supporting the very system that oppressed them. Every breath taken on this land has contributed to where we are today. Arlington is every person who is here and every person who has ever been here. We are grateful for that gift and will use it to work toward a kind, equitable, and sustainable community. We commit to making greater efforts to recognize and celebrate the lives of the Indigenous people who lived here before contact, since contact, and in the present day.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. We are now ready to begin our business of the organizational meeting of this board, starting with the election of the chair. I will invite nominations.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would move to elect you, Takis Karantonis, as the chair of the 2025 Arlington County Board.
And I would second that nomination.
Thank you. And I accept the nomination. This is a very humbling moment for me, especially for somebody who's an immigrant. We need to vote on that. All in favor, please say aye.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm eager to vote. I just want to say 15 seconds of comments. if that's okay, and I'm not trying to take
It
the
is.
motion, the movers. I would just say three thoughts about first thought. You are an immigrant. You have lived the American dream, and that is important to say out loud. I think today. Three thoughts. You are relentless. Everyone in this audience today and those watching who know Takas know he's everywhere all the time. It seems that he doesn't sleep. And relentlessness is a great attribute. You are compassionate. Your comments with respect to sentient beings, when we were talking about the animal issues the deer issues that we're facing, you care a ton about everything. And being compassionate is a great attribute. You are pragmatic in addition to being idealistic. I think that pragmatism is sometimes overlooked. I don't think you compromise your ideals, but you are pragmatic, which I think is important. And that is part of what it takes to solve problems. Thanks. I'm sorry to slow things down, and I don't mean to steal the movers' thunder, but I did want to share those thoughts because your story as living the American dream is inspiring to me.
Thank you, Mr. DeFerranti. Really, really humbling. I cannot overcome the emotional impact, so I will ask you for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. With that, the motion passes. I'm really deeply humbled by the result of this vote. I hope to live up. I hope to live up to the expectation of my colleagues. I will say later that I discovered here what collaboration means for public service. I know that I am accompanied here by absolutely exceptional public servants who really care about this town, about their resident, and about every single individual that is looking to us for leadership. The second order of business today is the election of vice chair. The floor is open for nominations. I want to take the initiative and nominate Mr. DeFerranti as vice chair of the Arlington County Board for the year 2025. I've known Matt for a very long time now. He has been an exceptional public servant. He has been chair on a very specific moment at the very beginning of my own career as an elected official. You were chair on January 6th, 2021. And this will be indelible in my memory. The calm, but the determination when everybody in this board, back then, staff, everybody, like today, would stand for democracy, would stand between an obvious menace and defending our Constitution. This is the number one. And the number two, you are the bleeding heart liberal who has been in all places that where need was there and answer from this government was needed. You have been elevated the issue of hunger in Arlington. You have elevated the issue of poverty in Arlington. You made this board extremely responsive to these things, far better than any time before. We have a social safety net today that is the envy of many of our peers, in part because of your leadership and because of what you have done in this area. And so for these reasons, I will love to see you as the co-pilot in this year. We need a second.
Mr. Chair, if I'm in order, I second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Colleagues, any comments? If not, then we...
I will.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Okay.
I probably won't take as long as my colleague, Matt, but I will say something about his public service. You know, I've watched Matt over a number of years work in our community, and though he and I may not always agreed, we've always found ways to compromise for the good of our people here in Arlington, and I'm always going to be appreciative of his thoughts, his concerns, and his desire to just want to also learn and give back to our community. So thank you, Matt, and thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you. Now we take a vote. Please, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Anybody opposed? No. The motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Ferrandi.
Thank you very much.
It's an honor. So the next order of business is the adoption of the calendar year 2025 County Board meeting schedule. You all know when we when we are going to be meeting. These are public hearings. I will invite a motion to approve the County Board meeting schedule as posted. Mr. Clerk, I believe this is already on our website, correct?
Correct, and I'll pull it up on screen for you.
And here. Oh, yeah. Let's wait for this to appear.
Mr. Chair, while we're pulling that up, there are two, the staff report is brief, but there are two changes that we're implementing this year, just to say out loud. And as soon as it's up, I will stop filibustering, but I'll say we're moving the meetings to 9:30 in the morning from 8:30 in the morning so that we can be more cogent and so that we can have better meetings, frankly. Yes, our community as well as staff. It's 9:30 is, I think, can be a significant benefit. We're also changing our Tuesday meetings, the start of some of the administrative pieces from 1:30, from 3 to 1:30, and we're reordering so that we have greater certainty with respect to the closed session. So the schedule's up there. I move the resolution attached to the December 31st, 2024 board report to adopt the 2025 County Board meeting schedule.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. DeFerranti. Ms. Coffey, the motion is by Mr. DeFerranti and seconded by Ms. Coffey. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. And nobody, this is unanimous. The motion carries. The next is the adoption of the calendar year 2025 County Board meeting procedures. We will hear the adoption of our calendar year rules of procedure. The proposed procedures reflect minor revisions to reflect the alterations to the start time, as already mentioned, the regular and recessed meetings, which will now begin at 9:30 a.m. On Saturdays, as well as alterations to the timing and sequence of our recessed meetings on Tuesday. Can I have a motion for this?
I would move the adoption of the 2025 County Board meeting procedures as reflected in the December 31st, 2024 board report and displayed on the screen today.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Cunningham. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. It carries unanimously. The next is the adoption of the calendar year 2025 procedures for budget and tax rate public hearings. We do them early in the year. Obviously, we advertise them early in the year. We will, next this motion, I will invite for a motion on these. If there is a motion for the procedures for budget and tax rates public hearings.
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of the 2025 procedures for budget and tax rates, public hearings as reflected in the December 31st, 2024 board report and displayed on the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Is there a second?
Second.
It's seconded by Mr. DeFerranti. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
It carries unanimously. The next one is the adoption of calendar year 2025 tiebreaker resolution. This may be not very familiar to many people. Virginia law actually provides for a device if somebody from us, we're five, if somebody is not present once, and we have a tied decision, we could theoretically designate a person to be a tiebreaker. This person would have to be elected, actually, et cetera. So there is a long, long list. For as long as I remember, this board has always approved a resolution to not have a tiebreaker and to wait until the next meeting until the board can make a decision. Ms. Cunningham?
I move adoption of the tiebreaker resolution that reads, Be it resolved that the Arlington County Board determines that there shall not be a tiebreaker whose duty it would be to cast the deciding vote in the case of a tie vote of the members of the Arlington County Board during the calendar year 2025.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. DeFerranti, by Vice Chair Mr. DeFerranti. There is no further discussion, I guess. Please, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nobody, this carries unanimously. Thank you. We will go further to the chairs and regional and other appointments. This is a meeting where of appointments to make at the beginning of the year. I will move the adoption of the following chair designations for terms ending December 31st, 2025, unless otherwise noted. This is a motion that doesn't need a second. It is on the screen. So to the Audit Committee, to designate Maureen Coffey, our colleague, as co-chair and Susan Cunningham as co-chair. To the Civil Service Commission, George Bailey as chair. To the Climate Change, Energy and Environment Commission, Cynthia Lewin as chair. To the Commission on Aging, William Way until September 30, 2025. Kathleen Cameron as vice chair until September 30, 2025. To the Community Oversight Board, Julie Evans as chair. To the Crystal and Pentagon City Council, Michael Dowell as chair until March 31st, 2025, and Robert Vaughn as vice chair until March 31, 2025. To the Disability Advisory Commission, Alexa Mavroidis as chair. To the Economic Development Commission, Kevin Yam as chair. To the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission, Gillian Burgess as chair and Scott Padowitz as vice chair. To the Forestry and Natural Resources Commission, Carolyn Hines as chair. To the Housing Commission, Kellen Macbeth as chair and Katie Wenger as vice chair. To the Joint Facilities Advisory Commission, Stacy Snyder as chair for a term ending on May 31st, 2025. To the Partnership for Children, Youth and Families, Janetta Brewer as co-chair for a term ending on July 31st, 2025, and David Carlson as co-chair for a term ending March 31st, 2025. To the Park and Recreation Commission, Jill Barker as chair and Gary Shiners as vice chair. To the Planning Commission, Tenley Peterson as chair and Nia Bagley as vice chair. To the Technology Advisory Commission, John Burke as chair and Michael Kornfeld as vice chair. To the Tenant Landlord Commission, David Tim as chair for a term ending June 30, 2025. This concludes the chair's appointments. The motion is on the table. Is there any comment? Or then we can proceed with a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations to all these individuals who, with the exception of Maureen Coffey and Susan Cunningham, are volunteers and help us and advise us all the way. And you know, we really appreciate the service of the chairs and vice chairs of these commissions, but also of all more than 250 commissioners who are spending and donating their time and talent to help shape policy for the benefit of the entire community. The next one are regional appointments. Mr. Clerk, I have it here. So to the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, is a motion. It follows. It also doesn't need a second. To appoint Takis Karantonis to the Board of Directors of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, to appoint Susan Cunningham to the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board, to appoint Julius D. J.D. Spain Sr. to the Metropolitan Washington Air Quality Committee, to appoint Susan Cunningham to the Climate, Energy, and Environment Policy Committee, to appoint Julius D. J.D. Spain Sr. to the Chesapeake Bay and Water Resources Policy Committee, to appoint Julius D. J.D. Spain Sr. to the Human Services Policy Committee, to appoint Maureen Coffey and Susan Cunningham to the Region Forward Coalition, and to appoint Mate Ferranti and Maureen Coffey to the Food and Agriculture Regional Member Farm Policy Committee. All these committees are with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. To the Northern Virginia Regional Commission to appoint Takis Karantonis and Mate Ferranti. To the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission to appoint Takis Karantonis as designate as the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board appointee from Arlington, to appoint Maureen Coffey as designate as the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board alternate appointee for Arlington, to appoint Mate Ferranti as designate as the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority appointee from Arlington, and to the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority to appoint Mate Ferranti and Julius Spain to the NVTA Planning Coordination Advisory Committee. I hope I got all right. Is there any discussion on the motion? Please indicate your agreement by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations to our appointees. This is a lot of original work that we are doing. It's necessary work. Each and every one of us represents Arlington in these bodies. This is where regional coordination and cooperation happens. And this is where significant interests of Arlington are negotiated every time these bodies are meeting. I will now invite Elizabeth Hardy, our chief demographer, to give us a short presentation on the Arlington profile. This is just a reminder for everybody who is watching or will be watching, just a reminder, a refresher about who we are, how many we are, where we live, and how we live here in Arlington. Every year, Arlington County publishes its demographic profile. It has a wealth of information in there. We are not going to go very, very in depth in this today, but I invite everybody to check it out. In late spring, we always have the next year's one. One that we are going to hear today is from the last year. Mr. Manager.
Yeah, so I'm going to welcome Elizabeth, and I think that, Mr. Clerk, we should have the slides available. Okay, and this is actually, it's a very fun presentation, so over to you, Elizabeth.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me here this afternoon to talk about Arlington's annual profile report. I will be sharing data from the 2024 update. As it was previously stated that we are currently working on the 2025 version. So I'm going to go over just a quick overview of what the profile is and then highlight 10 quick facts. Then I'm going to provide some details on additional resources regarding some demographic and development data. So the profile has actually been around since 1982, but in 2019, we did a survey of our users because we really wanted to create a document and a package that met the needs of our community. So while we still have a PDF report of the profile, it now contains over 100 variables. And those variables are broken down by different topics. So we have population, housing, households, employment, development, education, and several more topics. We also have all of our data tables in open data. So there's 86 tables in there, which are updated annually. And then we have an interactive dashboard that is a corridors dashboard kind of report. And everything can be found at arlingtonva.us/profile. And I wanted to highlight that in 2019 in the redesign, we broke some of the variables out by the major planning corridors. So that's really what makes this document unique. So we have data for all the corridors, so Roslyn Ballston, Richmond Highway, Columbia Pike, and then new in 2024, we added the Langston Boulevard corridor. And we have data broken out for these areas regarding population, housing, households, employment, development, schools and education, and then our population and employment 30-year forecast. So in no particular order, I'm going to go through these 10 quick facts from Profile 2024. I also want everyone just to keep in mind that these are snapshots of one data point, one point in time, and caution from making any kind of conclusions based on one data point. There's so much more to the whole story, and that all can be gathered with looking at the profile in its entirety. So number one, Arlington's population reached 240,900. So that's our CPHD estimate. And, we estimate that it reached over what we were counted for in the 2020 census. 63% of Arlington's population live in a planning corridor. So the wheel on the left represents the breakdown of our population by the different colors or the different corridors. And the wheel on the right shows the land area that each of those corridors represents. Number three, housing stock in Arlington contains 123,700 housing units, with the majority, 72%, being multifamily apartments or condos. Single family detached makes up 22% of housing, and single family attached is at 6%. 75% of households are occupied by one or two persons. So that's 3 out of every 4 households. And a household is defined as an occupied housing unit. Over 162,000 of Arlington residents are in the civilian labor force. And I also put on here the unemployment rate, which you can see is rather low. Last time it was 2.1%, and that's the 2023 unemployment rate. 70% of all jobs that are based in Arlington are located in the planning corridors. I also put on here the Pentagon and National Airport because there are a lot of jobs, about 14% of jobs for the county, and that is not really in any of the planning corridors. So I wanted to call that out as well. Okay, number 7, 54% of development in the Richmond Highway corridor is for commercial use. So we define commercial use in the profile looking at office, retail, and hotel. And then anything that is a residential unit is considered residential. So apartment, condo, single family, multifamily, that's all residential. You can see that the rest of all the other corridors, RB, Columbia Pike, and Langston Boulevard, they have higher residential GFA percentages than the Richmond Highway corridor. Number 8, 49% of Arlington Public School students, grades K through 12, reside in Arlington's planning corridors. So the wheels look at the percentage breakdown by the school grade level. So we have elementary, middle, and high school represented in each of those wheels for the corridor. Number 9, working from home has become the second highest mode of transportation for both Arlington residents and workers. So for those that live in Arlington residents, there's 27% of those workers work from home. And for those that work in Arlington, 21% work from home. And that's based on where someone works the majority of the week. And number 10, Arlington is the second best city or community in America. I think sometimes we rank number 1 on this scale. I think we're all number 1 to the most of us. And so I just wanted to put a bunch of statistics on this slide that showed, why Arlington is such a great community. And you can find more in the profile. So now I'm just going to highlight some other data and resources that we have available online. So I'm going to start with the demographic dashboards. The first one is the race and ethnicity dashboard. I'm pretty sure everyone's familiar with that one. And that's where we break down key variables by demographics in terms of race and ethnicity. So you can get a snapshot of each race, ethnicity in Arlington, and also look at the variables over time. Then we have, if you need to get a sub-county level demographic analysis, you can look at the census tract level data, which is available in the census tract demographic dashboard. And that data is also available by the Census Bureau. This is a easier tool to use than some of the stuff that's on the Census Bureau website. And more recently, this is the second year we have produced this CPHD population demographic estimates dashboard, which we provide current demographic profiles for the civic association areas. And civic association boundaries don't follow any census boundaries, so that's why this one is unique, and we found that it really provides a lot of information for our community. In terms of development resources, I'll start with the development tracking database that we have. This database started in 2000, so we have a lot of really great data following projects from county board approval to under construction, then to completion, and then one day ultimately demolished again. We put out quarterly and annual reports. We also have a dashboard and a project search tool. And then we try to do site visits and follow these projects. So we put some photos in a Flickr account, and also all the data is available on Open Data. And if you're looking for housing data, we have our master housing unit database, which is really stemming from recommendations that were made in the community facility study. It captures all the housing in the county. It gives some key variables such as unit type, owner, renter, occupied, which ones are committed affordable units, and this data is shared with APS on an annual basis for their student enrollment projections and student generation rates. And this is also available in GIS Open Data at that link on the slide. So Profile 2025 should be coming, if all goes well, April 2025. So I know you all are probably very excited for that one. But if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to the research team, which is myself and Nicole Bowling, and we're happy to assist with any questions or requests.
Thank you, Ms. Hardy. Yes.
And I did want to note, because Elizabeth and I spend a lot of time with each other, especially around census, but she and Nicole, I match the two of them against any other planning and demography unit in the United States. They do a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
I was going to emphasize the same thing. I think as community members, we often wonder, are we planning for things? And has anyone calculated whether this is going to work out or not? And we have an exceptional team that has been able to answer every question I've been able to come up with and publish these, which Maureen thinks is hilarious. It's true. And publishes the data as well. So our very interested and data savvy community can also access it. So thank you all for all your work.
And I would, in addition to all the thanks and recognition, I play with these dashboards very, very, very often. And there is a collateral benefit to that. After a while, you begin to see more connecting dots than just the data. You begin to feel the community in a very different way. It's an amazing insight, a window into Arlington every day. I really encourage everybody to do this often because this is really an amazing resource. So as the next one, it's the chairman's address. And that's me now. And I honestly, I fought against persistent writer's block on these remarks today. And I suffered a lot because I couldn't grasp that I would stand here and as an immigrant, as an Arlingtonian of 21 years, that I would be delivering this chairman's remarks today. No matter how well our previous chair, Libby Garvey, who I want to salute and thank for her service again, prepared me for this occasion, it feels still very unreal, and it's humbling and daunting. I said before, and I will repeat it now, I'm really deeply grateful to the trust and confidence, and frankly, to the collegiality and friendship of my colleagues. Because if there is something I learned to admire and to treasure about our county board, is that no matter what difference of view or opinion we have, we always have one thing in common, and this is Arlington and the service to our constituents. Everybody here on this side cares a lot about everybody on this side, and we know that this is reciprocal. So it's 2025, it's the end of the first quarter of the 21st century. It's kind of a milestone, and it invites to reflect on everything we have taken on as a community, and you have seen the data, what we accomplished together, and the challenges that lay ahead. In this meeting, customarily, the focus is on challenges, but I would like to briefly enumerate some of Arlington's accomplishments. We became a national reference of managing urban growth by connecting housing, transportation, and economic development, and doing more and better on less land while sustaining an enviable quality of life. We build an economy that attracts the most educated and talented. We proudly have one of the best public school systems in the nation. We balanced urban development with great public spaces and parks. We reacted early to the biggest challenge that humanity ever faced, which is climate change. We welcomed diversity and immigrants like myself, thus strengthening our community. We committed to a social safety net that is the envy of many. We invested in affordable housing and actively fought displacement and gentrification. We built a safe and healthy community, and we acknowledged our past, especially systemic racism and inequality, and started repairing the harm. As we matured, a form of governance, and that's more than just a form of government, which is based in participation and continuous civic dialogue and respect and civility. So, not surprisingly, this list of accomplishments is also a guide to the challenges we're facing today. And this brings me to my priorities for this coming year. Number one, economic and fiscal resilience. There is no way to sugarcoat the fact that the office vacancy rate is now a structural challenge. We need to rethink how we attract, incentivize, and retain businesses, especially small and medium businesses and startups, which speaks more to a long-term ecosystemic approach. At the same time, we need to recognize that the economic model that sustained Arlington over more than half a century, this 50-50 split of our tax base, has reached its historic limit. The swift completion of the remaining elements of the Commercial Market Resilience Initiative is among my highest priorities. That means removing barriers to reposition vacant buildings, being flexible, even if this means taking some risks, in converting and reusing these buildings is absolutely critical. There should be no doubt, though. Our most valuable assets are not our buildings, not even our businesses. Our most valuable assets, in my opinion, is our people, our uniquely highly skilled workforce. Retaining these professionals, attracting the high value-added businesses that employ them is our core mission. On to our budget. We will have to respond to the reality of a shrinking commercial tax base. A projected deficit, significant, around 30 million, is not sustainable. Neither is the currently projected deficit for the APS budget. So let me be clear. We cannot compensate for the declining commercial revenue with an equal increase in the individual tax burden. Thus, we will need to be frugal, strategic, and courageous, as we will have to reduce expenditures and stabilize revenues. This is difficult, but it's feasible, and without having to sacrifice our values. Number two, responding to the climate emergency. 2024 was the hottest year on record. It was also Arlington's hottest year on record, and 10 out of the 21 years I lived in Arlington were the hottest years on record. So I look forward to adopting early this year a climate resiliency resolution on which I have had the pleasure of working with my colleague, Ms. Cunningham, and Ms. Fioretti, our climate policy coordinator. I then look forward in proceeding with formulating a climate action plan that will elevate climate resiliency to a true all-of-society issue. Climate equity will need to be at the very center of this effort. Noted on the side, I continue to consider the residential low coverage study as an opportunity to curb imperviousness, to improve on stormwater management, preserve and enhance tree canopy, and reduce urban heat island effects. Number three, our housing crisis. Chronic lack of housing supply is the cause of our housing crisis. While we continue to have a vigorous debate about how to solve underlying systemic problems, and I'm referring to zoning reform and land use, we should proceed with practical steps that serve the goal of offering realistic, attainable housing options to more people. Beyond staying the course of our affordable housing support, like AHEV, the Affordable Housing Investment Fund, housing grants, eviction prevention, homelessness prevention, I look forward to be resetting our condo initiative, as I see there a medium-term path to attainable homeownership. I really appreciate Ms. Coffey's leadership on this and and I will be focusing on working with her on doing the most out of that. I further want to focus on the emergence of older adult poverty, which affects a rapidly growing number of Arlingtonians and is beginning as a housing affordability problem. 2025, the next one is safe streets and transit. 2025 will see the bulk of the work on updating our master transportation plan. Arlington will be a champion of efficient and safe urban mobility. We have a real chance to further reduce car dependence and prioritize safety, walkability, bikeability, and transit. However, working on a good plan should not delay action where it is urgently needed, like, for example, making South Carolina Springs Road safer now. I also look forward to the completion this year of the Columbia Pike Multimodal Improvements Project, which, while overdue and necessary, has impacted significantly the neighborhoods and the businesses along the Pike. Number five, youth and mental health. Overdose numbers and fatalities are down. And this is because we invested in mental health, especially for our younger population. To be clear, taxpayers' money saved lives. My commitment to quality after-school programs remains a top priority, and I look forward to working with my colleagues, our school board, our community of parents and students who have been urging us to stand up these programs for quite a while now. Number six, strengthening governance and transparency. So during my tenure as chair, I intend to focus on four areas. Number one, adding critical professional capacity to the office of the county board. More often than not, what is perceived to be a lack of constituent responsiveness, it is actually a lack of capacity. I look forward to the addition of 2 new positions to the county board office team, and also forward to the addition of an independent auditor position, on an additional position to the Office of the Independent Auditor. Number 2, adding new opportunities for person-to-person engagement with the chair and the members of the county board in meeting residents where they are. We already announced in-person open door Mondays at different locations across Arlington, and we'll do it again. Number 3, building on Arlington's Vision 2050, an initiative that started last year, we will organize a dialogue on the past, present, and future of the Arlington Way, which seems to be appropriate in the year that we celebrate the 100th birthday of Ellen Bozeman. And number 4, I look forward in engaging in constructive dialogue with my colleagues and advocates in our community who have expressed an interest in longer-term governance reforms. My next priority, and probably the most important, is community cohesion and resilience. We have to recognize that the change in the federal administration has created unbearable uncertainty for a very wide majority of Arlingtonians. While we have little choice other than having to adjust to a changing environment, our values cannot and will not change. We will continue to be there for all and each one of our residents in all neighborhoods and under all circumstances. We will always do our best to master the necessary resources to respond to their needs and support them and their families. This is Arlington. We care for each other, especially in difficult times. Every time you enter in a library, a school, approach a service counter, or need help in an emergency from an officer, or enrolling in a Parks and Rec program, you will be in a safe, friendly, helpful space. You will be welcomed with respect by our outstanding staff, who, like all of us, is part of who we are, a caring, learning, participating, sustainable community in which each person is important. So with this, I finally close, wishing you a happy, healthy, forward-striving, and productive new year. In Greek, this would be Chronia Polla, Kali Chronia, and in the language that most of our foreign-born residents speak, which is Spanish, is Feliz Año Nuevo, Feliz y Próspero Año Nuevo. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much. Now to the next one. I believe it is Matt Different, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the multiple languages, wishing us a healthy and prosperous and happy new year. I feel like that's in conflict with the diet that I need to go on over the coming weeks, but that's a separate thing. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy new year. Last year, I began my remarks by focusing on the urgency I felt and still feel to prioritize what mattered most in our community in light of being a new dad. This year, my daughter remains a joy and a source of motivation as I think about the future. But I'm also mindful that all Arlingtonians have major life events happening. I commit to doing my best to serve you. Here's what I want to spend my time on in 2025. First, we must serve the ideals at the heart of Arlington well. That means economic opportunity, compassion, inclusivity, and fairness. It also means, as you have said, Mr. Spain, being committed to both equity and to One Arlington. I look forward to working with you on those related priorities as I see it. Serving Arlington's ideals also means addressing the very real worries and concerns of our friends, families, and neighbors regarding the incoming administration. 4 years ago, on January 6, 2021, as Mr. Karantonis mentioned, as chair of the county board, I stood in my living room and talked to Mr. Schwartz and considered whether to order a curfew to protect Arlington residents. We received about 300 emails in 2 hours that afternoon. We never get that many emails in 2 hours. Yesterday, the Vice President certified the results of the election without delay or any drama. We must act within the integrity exhibited yesterday to preserve our democratic process. Specifically, we should do all we can as local government to protect our residents from federal actions inconsistent with our ideals. When we hit our limits, which as a local government we may and probably will hit, we will work with state or federal partners to ensure our community's voices are heard and lives are respected. Second, through mid-April 2025, as Mr. Karantonis mentioned, we will be working on a difficult budget. Later in January, we will find out if the decrease in the value of our office property tax base will lead to the county manager's projection of a $30 to $40 million deficit. Like last year, our tax base is more office than any other locality in Virginia. So our budget challenge will be more acute than other localities in Virginia and Northern Virginia. What's different about this year? What's leading me to say this is going to be a different challenge? Our staff has provided us with evidence that office valuations are down more than 10%. That's a conservative way of describing it. These estimates are more specific than last year, frankly. Further, in 2024, new construction from a few key companies led our property tax revenues to increase at the end. That is not likely the case in 2025. Finally, this year is different in part because our public safety employees, which are critical to our community, have been part of a county manager-led with county board approval conversation for ongoing funding to address the needs of our police, fire, and sheriff's office. I would align with the commitment to do all we can while balancing our competing priorities and the work that has already been started. As we consider this year's difficult budget, I commit to prioritizing the services and investments we need the most, to consider our equity resolution as we make decisions, and to being fiscally responsible. Third, there are some policies that I'll tick through quickly in an effort to keep my remarks under 7 minutes. Our economy, housing, schools and young people, climate, hunger, transportation, and equity. I'll try to be brief on each. We talked about our office vacancy rate as high as it's been in decades. The statistics from Ms. Hardy indicate that we have a large percentage of Arlingtonians who are working from home. That is a paradigm shift that impacts our offices. We must invest our time and energy in structural changes we need. We have an extraordinary workforce, Fuse at Mason Square, Amazon, tourism, a great place to live, great schools, great transportation. These are economic advantages, but we still have to make the hard choices to evolve economically. On housing, my two key priorities amongst many, and I'm thrilled that colleagues all are committed on housing, are homeless services and homeownership. About 7 or 8 years ago, I worked for Habitat for Humanity, and I had the honor of sitting next to Jimmy Carter for 35 minutes for lunch. Talk about a humble, great person. He sort of shared how he had never lived in a home for more than a year until the White House. It was a special conversation. But Habitat's commitment to low and moderate income home ownership is part of who Jimmy Carter is, and because I worked for them, and also because it's the right priority, it's something I'm eager to work with Ms. Coffey as well as others on the board on affordable home ownership. Homelessness has increased. We have to address homeless challenges. That means in our budget, we should be focusing on those most in need, and preventing homelessness is an area I really look forward to working on. Eviction prevention, because both our hearts and our heads, our wallets make more sense if we prevent evictions in the first place. And Ms. Cunningham and I, we've already started some work. We need to pick it up. Not that we've slacked, but we need to pick up that work and work on it in the budget period. Our schools and our young people. We have a couple of advocates who aren't shy about sharing their thoughts in the audience today. This is something I'm committed to working on. I started my career as a teacher, so schools are important to me for sure. We have a structural budget deficit. We have to work with our school board superintendent, our manager, as well as our county board to close that deficit. On after-school programs, last year we fought for ongoing and one-time funding. This year we need to work with advocates and our staff to systematize the work. I do not see this as a pilot. This is a new and permanent form of business that I believe we need to invest in. How we invest in this budget is a question of detail that we'll have to work through. On climate, really appreciate the resolution that Ms. Cunningham and our chair, Mr. Karantonis, are bringing forward. I want to thank Manager Schwartz for making changes in 2024 to position us to move forward this coming year. I remain committed, not a surprise, to electric buses. I also this year will engage in outreach to our residents and our faith community to do climate work locally, because local work will be the primary, and I say primary, perhaps exclusive, but primary source of the change we must have to address climate. On hunger, AFAC has reported skyrocketing need this year. We must respond to this past year's spike and continue to build the infrastructure to better address hunger. On transportation, I'm grateful to serve on DMV Moves. Thank you to several of you on the board and Mr. Chair, Mr. Karantonis, for helping me have the opportunity to serve on that group. We face a deficit in Metro funding, not this coming year, but next year, fiscal year 2027, that is existential for our community and existential for the region. I plan on helping meet the challenge of long-term dedicated funding for transit through that work. On equity, I'm fully committed to bringing a more equitable remain fully committed to building a more equitable Arlington. We have to be persistent on this. Just because it's 2025 and not 2020, we can't quit. That will mean working through the Community Criminal Justice Board on the interception points where we can appropriately divert people from jail and better address our mental health and substance abuse challenges. And I promise I wrote that before you guys showed up at the There are other equity challenges, digital equity, childcare. I would like to be a good supportive helpful actually with you, Ms. Coffey, and consumer protection through towing policies that serve our residents and our local businesses equitably. Finally, to best serve our community over the years ahead, I believe we should engage in a conversation and ultimately a county board-directed citizen-led commission on how we should best be governed. Speaking for myself as one member of the board, we would benefit from that work and from analyzing what has worked and what will serve us best going forward. The time we have and the opportunity to serve you is precious. I commit to working with the urgency you deserve.
On to Ms. Coffey.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, though it is quite hard to believe it's already been one full year on the board. And here today, I can't help but feel different from last year. Different because I've done this quite a few times now. I'm not super nervous about being able to turn on the microphone correctly and be heard and talk so that everyone can understand what I'm saying. And I know far more sitting here today than I did 1 year ago, but also different because a lot of the context has changed since last year. We have new, though somewhat familiar challenges that we're gonna have to work through. The national and international political situations are tense and uncertain. We are worrying about our jobs, our economy, our values, and for some in our community, even our lives. And it is a heavy moment that has made me think a lot about this position of power and our role as we embark on the year of 2025. There are going to be so many things in the upcoming year that we do not like or want or agree with. There's only so much impact and influence that Arlington can have outside of our boundaries. And I'm really grateful that we get to work alongside folks who will fight for us in the other venues that really matter. Representative Beyer in Congress, our entire General Assembly delegation, they're pretty great. But in feeling quite helpless to change what's happening across the river, I am also reminded that we have a job to do right here. And our job is Arlington County. Some of you may know I've played a lot of sports in my life, and one phrase that has come up from almost every single coach I have ever had: control the controllables. Whether it is bad weather, a bad call from a ref, an injury to one of your most important players, you're not gonna change those things, but you can change how you react, how you conduct yourself, and how hard you work to respond to it. You can strategize, you can communicate, you can focus on discipline, and you can prepare for what's coming next after that. We are going to have moments this year that are going to be infuriating and heartbreaking, and decisions that are going to range from uncomfortable to seemingly impossible, because we have a lot of challenges that are just not within our control. It's my goal as a board member to stay focused on controlling the controllables. The work of Arlington County goes on. We have nearly 250,000 residents to serve who need us to be at our best. We are not going to be able to fix every problem, and so we need to get very clear on what we can do and stay focused on doing that work well. To be clear, we are not forsaking our values or our neighbors. It is very much part of what we can control to work with our regional, state, and federal partners to change, improve, or mitigate as much as we possibly can. This community chose the 5 of us because we believe in protecting the rights of everyone in our community, including LGBTQ folks, immigrants, including prioritizing resources for those who are most vulnerable. But we can't change what others are doing, even when we vehemently disagree with it. And we need to protect the 240,000 people who call Arlington home. Figuring out how we do that is not quite a simple feat. We live in a very diverse community filled with different generations, different points of views, different lived experiences. Having some more honest conversations with people in different parts of our community will help us all learn about how many different perspectives there are on the different priorities that exist in Arlington. Truly successful engagement doesn't mean everyone always agrees on everything at the end. And I know that can be really uncomfortable because we want to get to a point where everyone feels good about the outcome. Working towards commissions and advisory groups that represent the full diversity of our residents, creating more opportunities to hear from people organically about what's going on in their lives, and helping people to understand the value of local government, what the county can do, what we can't do, is going to serve us all well, regardless of what else is happening outside of our county. In terms of what we can control, I see our job as investing both in the right now and in the work that's going to make us successful in the long term. As has already been mentioned, we are headed towards a really tough budget year that is going to force us to look at choices that none of us particularly want to be making. My goal is making sure that those hard choices do not disproportionately hurt those who are already hurting in our community. We know that the 2 greatest challenges facing our community are the cost of living and mental health. 2024 saw the lowest number of housing construction starts of the last 10 years in Arlington County. And while we have completed a significant number of new developments over the last 2 years, our job is far from done to meet our housing needs. And when the starts of housing stop, the completions follow shortly after that. People in our community are stressed on a daily basis about how high their rent is, whether it's going up, and whether they will have anywhere to go if it does go up. Arlington now ranks as the highest rent in the DC region, higher than DC itself, and frequently ranks in the top tier of national lists of how expensive it is as well. For those of us who call Arlington home, it creates an impossible feeling situation where we can't afford to buy, and we may not even be able to afford to stay in the place that we are currently living. If you have or want a family, we also rank highest nationally for the price of childcare, which is making having a family start to feel like a luxury good in Arlington County. And we know that cost of living is inextricably linked to our mental health. If you don't know where you're going to sleep at night, where your next meal is coming from, or if you can afford the clothes that actually fit your growing kids, it takes its toll. It creates anxiety, depression, and hopelessness, and it's not just in the adults who have those responsibilities. It spreads to our kids, to our loved ones, and it makes them feel hopeless and unsure about their futures as well. So investments in these areas must happen now because they reflect threats to our neighbors' well-being and survival right now. On the flip side, there are some choices that are long-term investments in our community that are really important as well. Our physical infrastructure and environment and climate investments are needed now because they keep us from paying a far greater cost in the future. Similarly, investments in financial stability in the form of our commercial market recovery and repositioning and our financial reserves are crucial parts of setting ourselves up for future success. Planning for the future is another part of that, and we will be taking on 2 planning initiatives this year that are also designed to set us up for success: the Master Transportation Plan Update and the Comprehensive Plan Review. Our transportation plan is an opportunity to create a roadmap, or maybe a train, bus, bike, sidewalk map for our future. And we know that in order to meet our climate goals and make our residents' lives easier, we need to focus on reliable, safe transportation that comes when people need it and takes them to the places they actually need to go, which may not be the same places that they were 5 years ago. Our comprehensive plan, which actually has 12 different plan elements, yet still doesn't include technology, will also be reviewed and updated this year. And I see this as a really important opportunity to look across our many different master plans and start working to align the goals and be really realistic about the trade-offs between some of the many priorities in these 12 different plans. People across our community have valid questions about where Arlington is heading and how we will get there. I believe we should be able to answer those questions, and I think the comp plan is a great opportunity to work towards that. Lastly, one less than obvious investment in Arlington's long-term success is making sure that this board gets really good at the job we have to do here. We are a young board with 3 members that have 1 year or less of experience. And so there is a lot for us to learn still, and I see it really worthwhile to build the internal capacity that might not be glamorous and might not even be visible to the community, but I expect and hope that this group here is going to be working together for quite some time, and so it makes sense for us to get good at working together. The better we are at our jobs, the better we will be able to serve the county and tackle any problems that come later down the line. I'm in this for the long haul, and though much of what I'm prioritizing here doesn't have overnight solutions or even 1-year solutions in most cases, we have it within our control to show up, work hard every day, and get organized to do the best that we can with all the challenges that we know we're going to face. If we control some of the things that we can control, I am confident that we can continue to make Arlington a great place to live this year and long-term in the future. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. On to Ms. Kendall.
Great. Well, good afternoon and happy snowy 2025. I also want to give a quick shout out to our snow removal and our public safety teams who have been truly working through the night to keep us safe and well, and to the many, many caregivers out there who've had a very long holiday break. Our thoughts are with you, and we're going to get back to school here soon. It really has been an honor to serve you all this year. Like Ms. Coffey, I'm a little bit more comfortable with these crazy microphones this year. My colleagues and the county staff, I really must thank you for your warm welcome and your patience with, as I mentioned earlier, quite a lot of questions this first year. And to Mr. Spain, welcome. We're so excited to have you here on the dais for the first time today. And finally, I would like to say a quick thank you to my husband and my teenagers, who you don't see up here, and they would die if you made them come up here. But it's their juggling of schedules and vehicles and public transit that make it possible for me to serve. So before we turn to 2025 fully, I wanted to do a quick look back at 2024. My priorities coming in included 3 things. One was connecting our people, investing in housing and planning, and effectively stewarding our resources. So how's it going? On the first, on connecting our people, I think a few folks have mentioned we made really solid progress this year on youth mental health and on programming. Reducing fatal opioid doses down 55% overall in the community and down 100% for our juveniles. We also expanded nature center access and community arts and teen programming that really just make our lives richer. On housing and planning, we expanded our commercial market resilience efforts, including attracting new proposals late in the year for adaptive reuse of office buildings, changing them from apartments into hotel rooms and changing them from office into hotel and apartments. We spent a lot of time clarifying the initial expanded housing options, or EHO, permit processes and sharing results of the first year of that program before the courts put it on hold. And we continued our housing grant, eviction prevention, and committed affordable housing investments, including 160 new CAFs that we approved, and dedicated funding for 432 new CAFs at Crystal House and renovating 93 homes at Barcroft. Finally, on stewarding our resources effectively, we made some good, solid initial progress on more fiscal constraint and improved constituent services. Recognizing we have a lot of fiscal pressures ahead, we managed to bolster our cash reserves, protect our AAA bond rating, and rolled most of the modest fiscal year 24 closeout funds into the fiscal year 26 budget planning. With a renewed focus on constituent services and transparency, we hired our new board clerk, Mason Kushner, our county auditor, Wayne Scott, and upgraded public document access, and also retooled our constituent services so that we are already seeing an improved response time of about a third from the beginning of the year to the end of the year for your inquiries. So lots more to do, but really a good start for this year. So what's ahead for 2025? In 2025, my goals are similar. I'd like to focus on strengthening our county and community resilience. So first, on the human side of human resilience, the well-being of all 240,000 or 240,900, I think, in our updated Arlingtonians is priority number one. For our youth, that means a balanced schools budget, mental health and after-school programs, and developing a youth strategic plan for the whole county. And for our most vulnerable neighbors, that means working with community and regional partners to meet very quickly evolving needs, especially for those potentially impacted by new federal policies on employment, immigration, or social services. Second, on housing and climate resilience, we all need a stable place to call home, safe from climate impacts. And Arlington has been a leader here, but there is much, much more work to do, as several of my colleagues mentioned. First, on preventing housing displacement. While rare amongst our DMV peer jurisdictions, we are in fact on our way to exceed our overall regional housing supply goals by 2030. And we continue to make strong progress on preserving and expanding our deeply affordable homes, but we need to keep at that, and we have ground to cover. In addition, we still need additional tools to keep our current residents in Arlington across ages and incomes. This includes home ownership programs, real estate tax relief, and an expanded condo initiative. We also need to analyze the impacts of short-term rentals and explore shared housing, like small-scale assisted living residences, given that our average household is really under 2 at this point. This is also the year to tackle concerns about residential lot coverage, highlighted as early as 2014 in our Stormwater Master Plan and many times since then. With my colleagues' support, in the coming weeks, we will direct staff to study how we can do more to preserve trees and green space in our low residential R5 through R20 neighborhoods. And on climate, we have the climate resolution and climate action plan. We will use those to deepen our commitment and action on climate mitigation and adaptation, bringing together staff experts and residents and businesses and academic and community partners to move the needle. I look forward to working with our new chair and with Deputy Manager Fioretti on a board climate resolution and interdisciplinary climate action plan. Third, on fiscal resilience and resource efficiency. I'm an engineer. I get nerdy on this, and I enjoy it. It's really important, and it's hard work for all of us. 2025 is going to bring declining office valuations. It's coming. We knew it was coming. It's really here for real. We're also seeing growing food and housing insecurity and anticipating the possibility of job insecurity at the federal level. To meet these challenges, we will need to focus on fiscal trade-offs, strengthening our organization, as Ms. Coffey mentioned, and improving our customer service and interaction with all of you. With county revenues projected to fall short by about $40 million, we have tough budget choices ahead. To soften the blow to taxpayers, we must consider program reductions and deferrals. Building on my CEO experience, I will analyze fiscal impact and return on investment, working with our team to prioritize enhanced revenue collection. I'd like to see our Commissioner of Revenue here today, efficiencies and performance metrics. And at the same time, I hope we can use this moment to inspire and commit to additional philanthropic and volunteer support across our community, which is part and parcel of what makes us thrive as a community now and into the future, whether it's the Arlington Boathouse or the Deeply Affordable Housing Fund. Our excellent county services depend on a strong organization from the front lines to this dais. So employee retention, especially amongst public safety and education and mental health professionals, and succession planning among our leadership remain top priorities that will build on former Chair Garvey's commitments to this organization. It's been quite a year. Political division nationally and worldwide waning trust in government. And so we must continue to be focused on building trust here in Arlington, from customer service and transparency, leveraging audits, performance metrics, and document access. Woo, exciting things. To reopening our truly open door Mondays, not just open virtual door Mondays, hearing from our diverse community members, and rebalancing our commissions to reflect our whole community. So this week, as we begin a new year of government service up here, we're also honoring one of our nation's great public servants and lunchtime companions of my colleague, Mr. DeFerente. President Jimmy Carter was the first president I really remember at all, a fellow engineer with Southern roots and a real leader on environment, human rights, health, and affordable housing. He listened, studied, and then acted his conscience, both as president and in the many decades that followed. His wife, Mrs. Rosalind Smith Carter, was right beside him, too, asking questions, building houses, advocating for major transformation of the mental health care commitments, and reinforcing that moral compass on the shoulder all the time, I'm sure. So our world is better for their shared century of service and example. As we step into 2025, amidst division, uncertainty, and challenge, I'm sure that President and Rosalind Carter would remind us each to reach across difference and be the community we mean to be. I look forward to doing just that, working with each of you to build a resilient, connected, and thriving Arlington in 2025. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Wow, I cannot believe I'm here. But I want to thank you to all of my colleagues on the board before I get into my prepared remarks for your outreach, for your mentorship up until this point, and also to the county staff for their due diligence in getting me where I need to be. There's still a lot I need to learn, but I'm very grateful for the team you have, your county manager, and their professionalism, so thank you very much. So I do have some prepared remarks, and I think I may be right at 7 minutes, but I have also come in with somewhat of a vision statement, not to overreach from where we are as a county, but to think about, and as I look at a vision here in Arlington, my vision is really in Arlington where we are united, we are innovative, We have inclusion that empowers every resident to thrive, where safe neighborhoods, equitable opportunities, and sustainable living form the foundation of a vibrant, connected community that generations will be proud to call home. That is somewhat of my vision for Arlington. So to my members, my colleagues on the board, and members of the community, when I first ran for office, I chose a theme called We Are One Arlington because it embodied a vision of unity and shared purpose. It was more than just a slogan. It was a promise to engage every resident regardless of neighborhood or socioeconomic status. Today, I reaffirm that commitment as a member of your county board because I believe together as one community, united by collective aspirations and shared responsibilities, we can do so much. You've heard 30 million, 40 million, but as we approach a challenging budget cycle, I look forward to working alongside my colleagues to engage and ensure that our financial decisions reflect Arlington's core values of equity, opportunity, and sustainability. Our focus should be on maintaining prosperity while addressing the needs of all residents. Many of you may know, many of you may not know that I have over 30 years of diverse leadership experience, spanning government, the nonprofit sector, academia, and I want to believe that I bring a results-driven approach to leadership, which has been recognized for my decisiveness, but also my empathy and commitment to innovation. I pledge to each of you here in this county that I will focus on fostering collaboration, listening intently to stakeholders, and driving bold, impactful actions. While these initial months of me being on the board will be dedicated to understanding the internal dynamics of our local government, my priorities for advancing in our community are well defined. Public safety, a foundation for progress. Public safety, my friends, is the cornerstone of our aspirations as a community. Every Arlingtonian deserves to feel safe, secure, irrespective of their race, their age, their disability, their gender, or sexual orientation. Achieving this requires innovative prevention measures and unwavering accountability. So this is what I'm going to advocate for. Increased investment in safe streets and restorative justice programming. Enhanced staffing and resources across local government programs and functions. Transparency and community oversight to foster trust in our law enforcement. Neighborhoods, my friends like Green Valley, have waited decades too long for action on safety concerns. There has been reckless behavior disrupting our neighborhoods, and this is unacceptable. And I will push for sound, decisive leadership to address these issues. I'm also committed to examining and enhancing recruitment practices and pay structures for our first responders. Local residency incentives, such as increased housing stipends, could encourage first responders to live and work in Arlington, strengthening our community ties. Together, I believe we can create a safer, more just Arlington for all. Supporting our youth, public health and education. Public health and education are cornerstones of a thriving society. While Arlington allocated $1.5 million last year for after-school programming addressing youth health challenges, including the drug epidemic, funding is just the start. I will work alongside my colleagues to ensure these programs are robust, long-term, and responsive to young people's needs. Our youth deserve safe spaces to learn, grow, and thrive. I also look forward to collaborating with the school board to ensure students and educators have the resources they need to succeed. Housing attainability, meeting our growing challenge. The housing crisis impacts every corner of Arlington, my friends. While awaiting the EHO appeal outcome, we must act. I will collaborate with my colleagues and county manager and the staff to incentivize housing development that serves all Arlingtonians while preserving the neighborhood character. Housing should not be a privilege. It is a fundamental right. Together, we will uphold Arlington's inclusive spirit and ensure housing is accessible to everyone. Governance and economic security. I spoke openly, my friends, about this on the campaign trail, and it is my opinion that Arlington has outgrown its current governmental framework. But the citizens have the right to understand our history and decide about the future. I support a public conversation about the future initiatives to include establishing a county board-directed commission. This commission may be composed of diverse stakeholders, community, nonprofit, faith-based, business, etc., but they should review and thoroughly analyze our government structure and make recommendations to this board if it remains suitable for a population of over 240,000 people. The Adaptive Reuse Initiative, approved in 2024, converting outdated office buildings into multi-use spaces, is a promising step. I will continue to work with our colleagues to continue addressing commercial vacancies and foster economic growth along these two areas, Columbia Pike and Langston Boulevard. Environmental stewardship, a lasting legacy. Ensuring the tree canopy program has the funding it needs to meet our tree canopy goals is non-negotiable for me. Trees are vital to our ecosystem, climate resilience, and sustainability efforts. Preserving and expanding green spaces must remain a top priority. In closing, the challenges we face are significant, but so is our collective capacity to overcome them. We are one Arlington. It's more than a slogan. It is a call to action. It should remind us that our strength lies in our unity, our diversity, and our shared commitment to a brighter future. I invite you to join me and my members on the board in this mission. Together, let's listen more, innovate boldly, and work tirelessly to build a community we all are proud to call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Congratulations
Thank you.
again. It's never lost on us. This is your first time, and that's an important moment for every person, especially for somebody who's for the first time elected to public office. Thank you, everyone. Without objection, this organizational meeting will be adjourned shortly. I want to just point out before I gavel this meeting out on two upcoming opportunities. And first of all, we have a virtual Open Door Monday on January the 13th at 7 p.m. That's next Monday. Our next regular meeting will be on January 25th, 2025 at 9:30 p.m. here in AM, sorry. Yeah, that was not AM. No, we're never going to start a meeting at 9:30 p.m. I don't believe so anyway. I want also to remind everybody that this Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of service next weekend. There are several opportunities. Many nonprofits are offering a lot of opportunities to do that. Arlington County will offer an official tribute on January 19th, that's a Sunday, at 5 to 6:30 p.m. In the Wakefield High School. I invite everybody to attend. This is always a very, very nice ceremony. And with that, if there is no objection, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year again.